You're watching Reconciling Raleigh with Pastor Olden Thornton.
And I think this is also connected to even the whole hate crime and what churches can and cannot say even from the pulpit. So all this is somehow connected to each other. Am I right?
Well, there might be a question in a pastor's mind whether they can talk about this type of issue from the pulpit, whether it's a political issue, and the IRS has really strict guidelines about political issues, and this is not an issue that would prevent a pastor from speaking about it. It is okay for a pastor to speak about issues from the pulpit, as long as they do not mention someone who's running for political office. And since we've just come out of the political election season, there shouldn't be any danger of a pastor overstepping that IRS boundary.
But yet we're getting letters, saying what we can and cannot do. So are we to ignore those because now we're hearing our rights?
Well, the IRS regulations only state that you cannot campaign for or against a particular candidate for political office. So you as a pastor are allowed to speak about issues, and I'm not familiar with the letters you're receiving, but if they state anything more than that, if they say anything or threaten that you cannot speak about issues from the pulpit, they are wrong. And so what really is at stake, though, I want to talk about what's at stake if we don't pass a marriage amendment and we usher in same-sex marriage in our state. Then eventually it will be impossible for a pastor to preach against homosexuality from the pulpit, because it will, and this is where the hate speech comes in. As in Canada, they have determined that homosexual marriage is legal. And so any speech that would speak negatively about same-sex marriage or about the lifestyle of homosexuality is also illegal, because it is hate speech. So if we don't want that type of atmosphere, that type of legal framework within our state, then it is in our best interest to pass this marriage amendment and get some protection into the Constitution.
And what's the outcome if it is illegal and you are caught? What happens?
Well, it would depend on what the courts determine is the outcome. We've seen cases where pastors have been jailed for preaching against homosexuality in Canada and in Sweden. Wow. And then the issue, arises of them teaching within the children's church, on your choir, throughout the entire ministry. You can't discriminate because of that, Well, this is another law that has been proposed in Congress, in the federal Congress, is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and that was a threat to us last year. We helped to lobby against that a little bit, and it was defeated last year, but it will be back on the table this year for discussion. And what it would do is it would elevate sexual orientation and gender identity to the status of a civil right, like race. And so it would prevent employers from not hiring people on the basis of their sexual orientation and their gender identity. And so that could be a threat to Christian preschools or day schools. It could be a threat to any type of Christian ministry. Unless there's some exemption. There was in the legislation last year, I believe there was an exemption for churches, but it did not include other parachurch ministries.
Wow. But back to, like you said, the coalition, that's at the forefront right now, and we need as many people as possible.
And that's what we can do on a state level to protect the state of North Carolina and to protect traditional marriages. We can get behind this marriage amendment.